If I could go back in time and read these all again for the first time, wouldn't that be something? With my top 10 modern time travel science fiction books, I'm Michael Everts, and this is Fit to be Read. The criteria for this top 10 is a blend that considers which of these time travel books are my favorite and how strongly I recommend each book to satisfy a reader's thirst for time travel stories. I've arbitrarily chosen 1980 as my cutoff for what I'll consider modern for the purpose of this list. Here now are my top 10 modern time travel science fiction books. I'm going to start the list off with an honorable mention. And that's The Chronicar by Steve Bellinger, published in 2015. I read this because it was recommended by my friend Peter from the channel P English Literature. This is an award-winning self-published novella by independent author Steve Bellinger. The main plot is that Tony, a gifted young man, has invented a time machine, the titular Chronicar, because of neglected research that he found in the Negro Journal of Science, as well as applying research that he read from Nikola Tesla. His initial goal is to travel 100 years in the past to meet Simi, a black man who we met at the beginning of the book when he is fleeing white men who are trying to lynch him. One of the many things that I like about this is that Tony has a brilliant mind for science, but he's not a perfect scientist. He has a bit of an impulsive street smarts to him that is a strength and a flaw. This is also a novelette in which all of the main characters are black. I highly recommend this to young and old audiences alike. It's a very easy short story to get lost in, and here's a little bit from the author.
The Chronicar is a time travel story that starts off with the son of a slave who is a genius. He stumbles upon Isaac Newton's Principia, which is a book by Isaac Newton that outlines the principles of physics as understood at the time. But he stumbles upon that, reads it, understands it, memorizes it. He gets a PhD in physics from Tuskegee. And you'll have to read the book to figure out how that happens. He comes up with the idea for a time machine that he can't build because the technology doesn't yet exist. Then 125 years later, a black IIT student, who is actually based on me, builds the time machine and goes back to the year 1919 to visit the doctor. But he gets mixed up in the bloodiest race riot in the city's history.
Number 10 is Doomsday Book, and To Say Nothing of the Dog, books 1 and 2 of the Oxford Time Travel series by Connie Willis, published in 1992. This is in the top 10 because of the superior sequel, To Say Nothing of the Dog. Because it is a series, we'll just talk about the first book, Doomsday Book, to get you started. This is one of those books that shines a light on comparisons between the past, the present, and the future, and makes you wonder how much better we are off now than we were in the past or will be in the future. In this enjoyable time travel story, historians are able to use time travel to, what else? Research the past. One student from the Historical Institute gets lost in the 1300s, so let's go find her. While we're at it, can we figure out why everyone's getting sick and what it has to do with the past? Number 9 is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This was published in 2019. This one gains points and loses points because of how easily it can be compared to Blake's other popular novel, Dark Matter. The reading experience felt very similar to Dark Matter, which is fine. Dark Matter was a good read. I just wanted a bit more. I give this points as I did feel the writing was stronger and the depth of storytelling was improved from Dark Matter. Crouch's work is perhaps the easiest science fiction to recommend to non-science fiction readers, and I think it's because the writing is well-paced and the science fiction elements are really accessible for a broad audience. Recursion follows suit here with cozy science fiction that gives you, oh, that's really cool moments, and then lets you move right on to the next thing. In Recursion, a cop, Barry Sutton, is investigating present-day cases of false memory syndrome. Victims of this syndrome have completely clear, vivid memories of things and events that they are certain never happened. This storyline eventually connects with that of Helena, a scientist researching memory in relation to helping Alzheimer's patients about a decade ago. The time travel in the book, while it falls in the okay, time travel will not end up happening this way, is really an enjoyable idea. This book is recent enough, and talking more about why the book is on the time travel shelf is more spoilery than I'd like to be, so we'll leave it at that. It's not so much that this is one of my top 10 favorite time travel books, but I did like it, and it is a top 10 in the sense that it's one of the first that I'd recommend, as I think others will really enjoy it. Number 8 is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. This was published in 1980. This is the humorous sequel to the humorous satirical Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, main character Arthur Dent is introduced before the Earth is destroyed and is basically forced on an unusual quest to figure out the meaning of life. In Restaurant, Arthur and company are again on a quest, this time looking for the ruler of the universe. The time travel in this book extends billions of years. I found this to be even more enjoyable than the first book and just as witty and wackadoo. Number 7 is Timeline by Michael Crichton, published in 1999. This is a time travel thriller. It's arguably alternate universe rather than time travel, but when the alternate universe delivers you to 1300s France, it goes on the time travel list. The initial hook is great for this type of story, a mysterious death, clues that on the surface don't make sense, and a 600-year-old note from the distant past, written by the leader of the team who found it. This is a good time travel read if you like a lot of physics, archaeology, and wormholes. The book is more about the adventure than it is about deep examination into time travel. Number 6 is The Chronolist by Robert Charles Wilson, published in 2001. Large pillars begin showing up out of nowhere or know when. Where and when they come from is the future. These have been sent back in time as trophies or monuments of victories that haven't yet occurred. The titular chronolists don't just appear, they are destructive, laying waste to the city around them. I very much like the character Scott that Wilson has developed, and it's the type of book that you can set on your lap for a moment while thinking about what you read and then get right back to it. Number 5 is Book of the New Sun, specifically Earth of the New Sun, and this is by Gene Wolfe, published in 1987. It's difficult to do justice talking about time travel and corridors of time for the 5th book of a series and not spoiling the series. Because Book of the New Sun is such an achievement of science fiction, and my hopes are that the audience for this video will give it a go, I'll just share that the first book of the Book of the New Sun is The Shadow of the Torturer. In Shadow, the hero, anti-hero, unreliable narrator of the story, Severian, is introduced. He is an apprentice in the Torturers Guild. The setting is a very far future dying Earth, spelled Earth, U-R-T-H. Severian has grown up in this guild, which contributes to forming his personality and worldview. Severian forms a bond with a client. This is what they call the inmates that are to be tortured. He intervenes before she can be tortured in a manner that gets him kicked out of the guild. Because I believe it is well enough known, I'll also share that in Earth of the New Sun, Severian is now the autarch, absolute ruler of Earth. Number 4 is Permafrost by Alistair Reynolds, published in 2019. This features 2 worlds or times really well developed for how short and quick this read is. These 2 world settings are 2080 and approximately 2030. The time travel aspect in this is unique and creative and includes the less unique paradox that a small change in the past can have an enormous impact on the future. The 70-year-old protagonist, Valentina, is sent back in time to 2028 as part of an endeavor to clone and distribute some seeds that might just prevent the scouring, a future environmental disaster, from occurring and thus save humanity. Number 3 is The Time Ships by Stephen Baxter, published in 1995. This is a worthy extension of Wells' classic with inclusion of more quantum mechanics, parallel universes, character development, and more pages. This is definitely a chunker relative to Wells' original novel. It works well as a sequel and picks up where the original left off, with the time traveler again traversing 800,000 years in the future to try and save the Alloy, Weena. Number 2 is Spin by Robert Charles Wilson, published in 2005. And I'm not going to show you that one right now because I'm actually rereading it, so I don't know where I put that book right now. This spot was always going to go to an unconventional pick. The other candidate was Peter Watts' Freeze Frame Revolution, which is really more of a time dilation category that feels like there are time travel elements, but that I can't really prove, and I would want to put that in my number 2 or number 1 spot, but I'm not going to do it because it doesn't really fit the list. Spin also needs a bit of a sell to call it time travel, as it sits on the cusp. The Earth isn't shielded, and the stars and the rest of the universe are blocked out. Time on Earth and inside the force field moves at a rate of 1 year for every approximately 100 million years in the universe outside of the force field. Imagine the implications of that. Well, that's exactly what Wilson does. He imagines it and he creates an amazing and Hugo Award-winning story around it. This is not a time travel story where the character gets in a machine and ventures forward or backward in time. And my number one science fiction modern time travel book is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, published in 1989. Hyperion is my favorite book on this list because I love everything about it. In trying to balance love of the reading experience and enjoyment of the time travel elements, I was planning to put this at number 2 because while I enjoy the time-related elements of the book, it's the space opera, the time travel, military science fiction, action, and drama that all combine to make the novel an absolute masterpiece. So much of the story is rooted in the time tombs and the movement of the Shrike and other characters through time that I do feel pretty confident in parking it right here where it belongs. In Hyperion, 7 pilgrims travel to the distant planet Hyperion to visit the time tombs that are surrounded by an entropy field and moving backward in time. Each pilgrim has a connection to the metallic, blade-covered creature that they will encounter there, the Shrike. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Levers, and this is Fit to be Read.